of the biggest and most important things to recognize is that, you're dealing with people. And if you can put at the center of it humanizing the conversation, and that's a really great way to create connection. When you're sharing stories and you're empathizing, you can't do it without being empathetic and being vulnerable to a certain degree.
This is Outside Sales Talk, the best podcast for outside salespeople. I'm your host, Steve Benson, and we're here to chat with the world's top sales experts so that you can get their best sales tactics to level up your game. Welcome back to Outside Sales Talk. Today I have Julia Andrews with us, and she's going to talk about the art of feminine selling. Julia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, by way of introduction, Julia is the Pacific Northwest Regional President for the National Association of Women Sales Professionals. She's also the founder of Connect to Close and the creator of The Art of Feminine Selling. Julia is also a performance coach who's sold over 215 million in sales, approaching a quarter of a billion. I mean, that's pretty good. and and
Yes.
bring that's a that's a billion with a big B. Um,
Yeah.
and brings her corporate financial services expertise into her process. So, well, let's get started. Julia, first, what do you think is the essence of sales?
Well, I love that question because a lot of people think that it's not what I'm about to say. Not that I want to be a contrarian, but I personally think that sales is serving. I really think that if you put your customer at the center stage and you really want to make a difference, either transforming with products and services, helping organizations, that's at the core what sales is. And sales, it enables you to be able to do that. So it's serving.
Absolutely. Well, I love that answer. And tell us about selling as convincing others versus selling as a genuine desire to serve others.
When I hear, convincing, it's kind of triggering for me. But the first thing that comes to mind is, are you a relationship oriented? Are you thinking long term and the long game, or are you transactional oriented and looking for the quick win? And if you're looking at it from aligning products and service, being the person that's going to help your customer, your potential clients achieve what they want, you don't. There's no need to convince. There's no need to go into that area. I mean, we have to understand that there's competition, and what three things that you really have to be proficient in, I believe, as my mentor tells me, you really have to be persuasive, you really have to be compelling, and you want to be influencing. There's a quote by Dean Jackson that goes, a compelling offer is more powerful than a convincing argument. So if you are looking at it from that perspective, building trust, wanting to do right by the customer, there's no reason to try to put them in a corner and convince them that this is the right play, or the right solution for them, if you're able to proficiently do those three things. So there's no need for convincing, I don't think.
I love it. And tell us, what are the three pillars in your three pillar framework method?
Okay, so as I started teaching sales and doing trainings, I realized that there's a lot of different stuff that goes into having a successful sales process. So categorizing things was a way for me to help them understand it a little bit better, and by way also have them recognize potentially if they needed to get a little bit stronger in certain areas. So for example, the first pillar is really everything that covers your pre-sale, and it's a handful, but that's, you understand why I categorize them. So you're looking at your pipeline building, which is now also virtual prospecting, I would put into that. You're qualifying, that's that's a huge one. People that are, the pre-motivated, predisposed individuals that you can put into your pipeline. Creating content, creating your digital footprint. If you're starting to pump out content on, social media, so that you are differentiating yourself, your messaging and your copying, webinars, demand generation. There's a lot that goes into it. So instead of saying all that, you categorize it in one bucket, right, in one pillar. The second one would be the actual conversation in and of itself, your virtual sales conversation, your demo, your presentation. And here's really where you want to make sure that you are doing an incredible job of, building value, investigation, uncovering the needs of your prospect. If you're selling to the right individuals, right, so the decision makers, the people that are going to say yes or no, and the proposal, and ultimately winning the business, and understanding what has to go right in that situation for it to move to the next section, which is obviously winning the business. And the third one, I felt compelled to put it together because a lot of sellers, I realize, that kind of forget about this piece, or move it to a different department, or don't think that it's as important. And I think it's super important to highlight it. So if you didn't win the business yet, you obviously need to be, following up, exercising your tenacity, your creativity around how to continue to stay top of mind and in front of your prospect. But here's where also the implementation piece of your product, consultations of how to use it, the maintenance piece to it. A lot of companies in the technology space have their customer success, but also, if you think about it, this is the area where you have referral selling. You're building and creating raving fans, and if appropriate, and ultimately, if it's a good fit, partnerships. So understanding all those three different pillars, and being either, if you're strong on all of them, then you're probably killing it. And if you're not, then there's probably areas that you can identify where you can grow and become better.
Well, I think we can all grow and become better. What about vulnerability? Why is vulnerability so important when it comes to sales?
I think one of the biggest and most important things to recognize is that, you're dealing with people. And if you can put at the center of it humanizing the conversation, and that's a really great way to create connection. When you're sharing stories and you're empathizing, you can't do it without being empathetic, and being vulnerable to a certain degree, and knowing that instead of feeling that vulnerability is a negative thing to do, that you're doing to your potential client, it's actually a way of creating trust. There was a survey that came out in 2019, from a company called Edelman, and they suggested that 81% of people want to feel that they trust before they buy. So creating trust is a way of creating connection, and by creating connection, you're being vulnerable with your potential clients. So it's super important to do that and create that.
Well, and it absolutely is, and it's so, yeah, I think it's hard too. It's hard to be vulnerable. How would you suggest that salespeople become more comfortable being vulnerable with customers? Sometimes, these are people that you don't know all that well, right?
Yeah. Um, One really easy way to do it is be curious. Aim to see the world through their eyes. Be try to really be empathetic around, what are their struggles and their challenges, and how can you help them? Maybe you can share a story about a past client, right? Or some way, somehow, that you supported them, helped them. Validate their emotions. Maybe sometimes they gave an opportunity to someone and they didn't deliver on their promise. So meeting them where they're at creates that level of safety, that area where they feel comfortable talking to you, that you are genuinely interested in their needs and how to solve them, versus just how to make a quick sale. And it's really just connecting, finding things that are in common, and bringing the human element to it. I mean, we're selling to people at the end of the day, and people buy from people they like. and people they trust. And if they don't trust you, it's going to be a really hard sale. Actually, you're probably done if they don't trust you, if you don't create that environment with everybody that's a decision maker, and especially with your champion, the person that wants to see you succeed, the person that potentially already has a buy-in before all the other decision makers weigh in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you aren't able to build trust, or if you lose trust, you've almost certainly lost the sale, because people
Yeah,
don't want to do business with you, right? They're not.
yeah.
That's one of the key things. They have to trust that you're going to create that business value that they're looking for.
Absolutely. I love one quick thing about that that I always share. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Brene Brown, and she talks a lot about vulnerability. But one thing that's important, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. She says that when you shut down vulnerability, you shut down opportunity, you shut down your problem solving area, you shut down creativity and innovation. So, in especially for instance, right now where we're having to really think on our feet and differently, how are you going to problem solve when you're not willing to admit that maybe you don't have all the solutions, when you're not willing to go there essentially, and that's really what it takes.
Hmm. Well, and if the last year and a half has taught us anything, it's how much we have in common, right? I mean, and we can be vulnerable about our and expose, be forthright, and expose what our experiences have been, and connect with people over that. I think um,
Absolutely.
we've all been in the same struggle here, right?
I know, and it's like it's like when you know that somebody's gone through what you're going through, it's not like automatically like your shoulders relax. You're like, oh my God, that person gets me. They
Hmm.
understand my struggle, what I'm going through. And that essentially is what we're talking about right now, is creating that environment of safety, of knowing, hey, you've been through that. Guess what? I've also been through that, and it sucks. And let's see how can I support you, or help you get ahead if I'm able to do that. So it just allows the door to be open a little bit wider, if that's a good analogy, and it just creates this safe space, and this desire to connect and to talk about what's happening, and then how can we move through together.
Hmm. And and what about connecting to your strengths as a salesperson? How what can you do to connect to your strengths better? Identify your strengths and then actually connect to them so you can leverage them and integrate them into your sales process.
Yeah. So here's a way where you can. So two things I would say about that. So the first one is you want to identify what are your strengths, and conversely, you also want to be willing to receive feedback on the areas where you can improve upon. But imagine if you, for example, are great at building relationships. I mean, that is huge. That is the key to a long career in sales. Being passionate about serving, and being passionate about the potentially the business or the company that you work for. I'll tell you a quick little story. I mentor this gentleman at this technology company, and he is so excited and so passionate and so genuinely happy over what this company does to their customer, and how he gets to represent this incredible company. And it's so inspiring to see. So he's acknowledging his strengths as being passionate, and he's showcasing that by way of talking about the company, talking about what they do for their customers, sharing content online, having people. I mean, it's very you could just tell that it's not just a content calendar that he's putting out there, or that he's being paid to talk about the company. You can really feel this person feels like, wow, like this is an incredible place to work at. So exercise that. Also, if you have a strong business acumen, that's going to be super important in your conversation. So utilizing those strengths is the differentiator when it comes to, why am I different in a sea of salespeople that potentially are selling the same kind of product. So I would double down on those things.
Well, and I'm really glad you brought up mentorship. Why would you say mentorship is so important to scale sales success?
So let's see. Do we have 45 minutes? No, an additional 45 minutes. No, an amazing topic of conversation. I think that if you know if you want to go further faster, Don't go alone. I know there's like a bunch of quotes on that and I forget them, but
Hmm.
I'll tell you my experience. For example, now not too long ago, I was working for a global technology company, and we were looking to create different verticals and do go to market strategies, etc. And it all sounds great. And I was just like, how am I going to do this? So I remember putting together a strategy, and I shared it with my mentor. So my mentor was able to share with me, or I was able to benefit from his 40 plus career in sales, building companies from 8 figures to multiple hundreds to the billions, becoming a chief revenue officer, and being able to learn from his either mistakes, struggles, things that he did that maybe didn't work out, and having that guide and that supportive individual that not only is going to tell you what things to do best, it's going to challenge you to think in a different way. It's going to share his wisdom with you or her wisdom with you. And they're going to just help you accelerate in the areas that you want to grow in faster. So I think it's so important that, that you see the value of getting there quicker by actually having people around you that are supporting who they're championing who you are. They want to see you grow and succeed. My mentor, for example, Steve Kelly, an incredible man, he also has mentors. He's obviously a seasoned and tenured professional, and he also sees the value of feedback and of other individuals giving him wisdom of how to do different things. And I think that I can't talk enough about the importance of having someone in your corner looking at what are the things that you're doing great, what are other things that you may not have even anticipated that you should be aware of, and how to get there quicker and faster. So mentorship is just I think it's a must have. It's not a nice to have in somebody's life.
Yeah. Well, and how do you go about finding the right mentor as a salesperson? How do you find someone who meets your personality and will understand your needs and the direction that you're trying to go? How do you match up with a mentor?
So important. It goes back to what we were describing about strengths. You want to really understand, who you are as a person. Your network is a great place to start. Potentially the company that you're working for, or people that you see are where you may want to be one day. That you align with their values and with their beliefs. And reaching out, and essentially the first thing that we're doing is we're establishing a relationship and we're building trust, right? So I would start there. There's a lot of individuals that want to mentor, that have that heart, that have a lot of experience. But I just invite you to be courageous and to ask.
Tell me about the ideal mindset that a salesperson should have. Like, and if you wanted to change that mindset, maybe because you're in a sales slump, how could you change your mindset to be a more positive one that's going to yield more success?
Well, one thing that I believe that salespeople I mean, they're incredibly resilient. They're very special in the way that we're taking rejections on the daily. So developing your resilience, and what one of my other mentors, Cynthia Barnes, says, your BBA, your bounce back ability. It's really important because um, success doesn't come without failure, and failure is just another way of it's another experiment. That's all it is. There's nothing wrong with that. So having a mentality that supports you instead of working against you is very important. I would also say that positivity is super key, and now there is, guys, check this out, scientific proof that optimistic salespeople outsell their pessimistic counterparts by over 56%.
I
So
believe that.
it's,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's super important to understand that it's part of the game. It's part of, you didn't go into sales because it was easy. I mean, that's just right. It's a hard gig, but it doesn't have to be hard on you if you understand that, sometimes you have good days, sometimes you have bad days. If you're doing all the right things, qualifying is huge, right? Making sure that you're keeping your pipeline full. I mean, there's so many different things that you could be doing to be smart, but you have to be resilient, and happiness and positivity is super important. And I would say that um, find things to be happy about. One another mentor that I used to have, her name is oh my god, I like blank for a moment. Dallas Travers. She gave me a book, and it's not like a book. It's called the 5 minute journal. And the ways that you can cultivate your happiness is being grateful. And it has little prompts in there, very simple, like write down three things that you are grateful for. And it could be like, in the morning, my coffee. I'm really grateful for good coffee. Like it could be simple things like that. It doesn't have to be crazy things. Or one of the things that I would say often, like a lot, and I realized that I love my bed, was that I'm so happy for my bed. I'm so happy. And I think it's just not taking yourself too seriously and having fun. One of the reasons I, got into sales, I mean, was because I get to see and meet people, and I genuinely enjoy helping people and helping them and helping each other. Right? They get what they want, and I get paid very handsomely. So it's a win-win situation. And I think just not taking yourself too seriously, finding ways to be happy, finding ways to give to yourself back. For example, things that so that you're not resentful. What I would say is think about the things that bring you joy, the things that literally make you happy. If you play an instrument, if you like being outside, if you like make time for those things so that you recharge and you feel happy giving of your time in holding space for other people. I think that's super important.
Yeah, I mean, bounce back ability, positivity. I mean, bounce back ability, resilience, right? Like that. That's
Hmm.
not just something that salespeople do way better if they have it, but in general, successful, happy people. One of the key characteristics they have is they have resilience. But
Hmm.
I think it's especially important for success in sales. Um,
Absolutely.
so, could you tell me about how everything we talked about today ties into the art of feminine selling?
Yes, I'm gonna everybody lean in because I'm gonna tell you a little secret. No, so you're probably gonna get this because, and everybody else too. But if you're a business owner, you always want to make sure that you're connecting your message and your copy to the ideal client that you want to attract. So originally, this was actually called Connect to Close. So that was my company's name. Connect. You connect with audiences and you close the sale by helping each other, helping them win. But my audience was not resonating. My audience started being women, professional women, and B2B or B2C, and entrepreneurs as well. So I would ask them, how they felt about sales, and surprisingly, there's still this huge stigma that you have to be aggressive if you're selling, that you have to be, pushy. And I was like, what? Like, you don't have to be any of those things to be successful in sales. So I started asking the question, how do you want to feel? And I started getting multiple times from different individuals, I want to feel feminine. I want to feel like myself. So I changed the title of the program so that they would give me an opportunity to actually share what it is, which is the three pillars, framework method. And it has nothing to do if you're a guy or a girl and you want to do it. It was a way for me to have them give me an opportunity to talk before shutting me down.
Hmm. Well, and tell me about how men can use the art of feminine selling, because obviously it's not just for women, but the focus
No.
on connection can benefit men too.
Absolutely. So again, it goes back to the three pillars that I discussed. None of what I shared has anything to do with gender. It has a lot to do with, where you're at in your sales process to become successful. If you recognize maybe I need to learn how to qualify more effectively, or I need to actually learn how to ask for the clothes in a way that, multiple times, or I need to learn how to follow up more effectively. You'd be surprised, but not a lot of people follow up as religiously as they should in order to make the sale. So it's really identifying, being vulnerable with yourself. Where are the areas that I need to grow in to become better? So I think that, if you're able to pinpoint right now, like what's getting in the way of you getting what you want right now in your sales cycle, in what you're doing, and if it's, not getting a lot of, clients, well, maybe we need to start prospecting, or you're prospecting well, but the people are not closing. Well, are we qualifying? So, you have to really be honest with yourself and look at, where am I falling short so that I can improve upon.
Well, the next section is sales in 60 seconds. So quick questions and quick answers.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Tell me what role does awareness play in the sales process?
Okay, so awareness, really quickly. Awareness is self leadership. So I think that you, as God, I heard this saying, and I think it's really spot on. Life is an awareness game, and you need to be aware. Going back, where do I have to, be excel, or where am I falling short? Uh, you know, Keeping it short, right? Awareness is self leadership. So lead yourself into success by identifying, where do I need to grow in.
What about authenticity? How does authenticity play a part in the sales process?
Simple answer, I believe you have to have a genuine interest to help. You have to have a genuine desire to be able to make a difference, make a transformational difference for an organization or an individual, in order for you to, to be authentic of, where you're at in that process. Without it, I think that you're you have no business there, I think, because you're not being you're not being authentic to who you are. You're not being authentic to trying to help people. So I think that, authenticity just, comes with, to really having that desire to serve.
Yeah, and I think it's on authenticity too. I think it's so important that you believe in your product, believe in your company. It's so hard to work at a company where you don't really believe in the value of the product, or you actually think that the competitor is a better choice.
Totally.
It's really it's I think it's so important for salespeople to work at companies where they can be passionate about the actual problem that you're solving and the way you solve it, or the actual product that you're selling that helps people, and the way it helps people. It's so important.
You're spot on. Super spot on. Believe in the product, believe in what you're doing, so that that comes through in when you're sharing and talking about it.
And what about empathy? Where how does empathy play a role in the sales process? That came up earlier, but let's dig in there.
Yeah, so basically, ask them questions. Ask them questions about how they feel about a certain thing, and, empathize with their situation. But I think it's super important that you are, you know, a lot of sellers talk a lot. And I think in this situation, it's really important for you to listen. Listen about what they want, what they desire, what is the struggle, and really empathize with their situation. But you can't do that if you're not really listening to what they're saying, so that you can share with them how you can help them in a real, true way.
Yeah, listening is truly the key to putting yourself in someone's shoes. You can't put yourself in their shoes if you haven't truly heard them, truly understand where they're coming from, where they're going.
Completely.
What's your number one sales tip for salespeople who are having, or I guess your number one tip for salespeople who are having trouble connecting with their emotions?
So I've gone to so many different styles of training, that I've never seen one not touch on emotional intelligence, and one that doesn't bring up, a way of kind of getting your emotions, aware of what's happening, is asking why. Asking yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Why is this important? Several times until you connect to the reasons why you sell. And it's never almost about the money. I mean, yes, we like making, anybody that is in sales loves making money. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not necessarily just about the money. It's about what that money can help you do. It's about how you can support your family, achieve a certain dream. But you get visceral about why. So asking that question can really help you pinpoint, get close to the emotional piece of why you do this, and asking why several different times. Again, all the trainings I've done always have an exercise around why you're doing what you're doing. And you'll be surprised at things that you actually say after maybe 10 minutes. The real truth starts coming out, and you become very passionate about, yes, this is why I chose to, work for this company, or what's going to help me do, or how is it going to enable me to do X, Y, or Z. And it's a great exercise to get really close to your emotions.
And what would you say the most common mistake is that you see reps make in their sales process?
They wing it and they're not prepared enough. um it's hard. I empathize with them because I did it at one point in my career. But when I really started getting serious about what I was doing, I was never leaving anything to chance. I was prepared about my products, my services, who is this individual that I'm selling to, or several that I'm selling to. Um, my mentor Cynthia Barnes says you need to understand your customer with granularity and specificity. And if you're not prepared to answer objections, to you're just you're leaving everything to chance. You're kind of playing sales. You're not really um, there to serve, but it's being unprepared. That's probably the biggest one. Just winging it, that I could say.
Absolutely. Well, as an actionable takeaway, what would you say that the field salespeople listening today should do as a first step towards better utilizing the art of feminine selling?
Okay, so I have two for you. So the first thing that I would do, being a field sales myself, I would have, I would get a mentor. That's the first thing I would do. And the second thing, I would really get real with myself around the three pillars that we talked about. Which one are you falling short? Which one do you need help around? And I would potentially, maybe ask your manager or ask somebody that you trust to give you feedback around where they think that you should become better, if you're open and willing to receive feedback and to be vulnerable.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to try to summarize all the wisdom that you've given us here today. Um,
Thank you.
so, first, as a salesperson, Julia recommends that you should focus on being persuasive, compelling, and influencing people. And Julia talks about three pillars that are really important to being successful in sales. And those are first, sharing content, and you want to attract your prospects and welcome them. Then you want to focus on sales conversations, and you want those conversations to build value and investigate the needs of your prospects in order to better win their business. And then three is following up. So you want to exercise your creativity to stay on top of your prospects' minds. So those are the three things: sharing content, having great sales conversations, and following up well. You want to be vulnerable with your potential clients so that you can build trust in your relationship. And trust is so important. You want to build trust by meeting with your prospects where they are. So that means empathy. So you want to show prospects that you're genuinely curious. You want to ask them, you want to ask things about them, and you want to show them that you understand their challenge and their struggles. It's important to identify your strengths and then ask for feedback on how you can improve from your mentors. And it's important that salespeople work with mentors so that they can get ahead in their careers faster and be able to develop that understanding of themselves that sometimes is hard to see with our own eyes. You want to reach out to people in your network to find mentors first. That's often a great place. People at your company, people you've worked with. Key things to being a great salesperson, you need to be resilient and you need to be positive. So, positivity and resilience. So, the art of feminine selling is all about identifying the areas that you can grow to sell better so that and that and really anyone can benefit from this selling method. And it's all about connection with your customers. And that's kind of the root of all this. Um Tell me, Julia, where can listeners read more about your work and how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I would love to hear from sellers. I'm always on LinkedIn, so feel free to look me up, Julia Andrews. Just my name, Julia, though, not Julie, Julia Andrews, and or juliaandrews.com. And I'm on all social platforms, so if that's where you hang out, then I can, connect there as well.
Yeah, I've just been struggling this whole time not to make a Sound of Music joke.
I heard them all.
The sales are alive. No, no, I'm not going there. I'm
Should
good.
try that one.
um, well, this has been a fantastic episode of the Outside Sales Talk. If you work in field sales, you'll love Badger Maps, the #1 route planner. It helps you sell 20% more, drive 20% less. You can get a free trial at badgermapping.com. If you can think of any other sales reps that would benefit from the concepts and skills that Julie has taught us today, definitely forward this on to them. Take care until next time, everybody.
Bye.